The most resilient community of gamers I've encountered is that of The Division. Many players stayed through The Division 1 from launch all through the release of The Division 2. This community is dedicated. There were some content creators that even continued to play the game through the bugs, the patches, and even through the harassments from trolls on their streams or on their videos. There were even some who played while all their friends left the game, and hence they just continued to track along solo. So there's no question as to the resilience of the Division community, and I will brag on this community any day as one of the best communities that I've been a part of. But I must say that with the current changes being proposed, it seems like the developers are simply at risk of wasting the precious time of the community members. In fact, so many folks are right now kind of upset, and some have commented that they're deleting their game while others are making their way and hoping and waiting for new releases, such as Days Gone, World War Z, and in the near future, Borderlands 3. The player base right now has mixed feelings, as many gamers have spent precious time learning the game's mechanics and now have to do so again within the space of 1 month. And just as most of the developers are like us, mostly dads, working class folk, and regular gamers who have commitments and responsibilities outside of gaming, it seems like it's never factored in when it comes to the so-called balances that we actually spend time grinding and making our builds and doing all these things in participation with the entire game. And this is at the heart of the relationship of most of the community members with Massive. And what's really funny is that in a strange way, I believe that the developers understand exactly how most of the community feels about some of these changes or nerfs that are being shown in the PTS right now. It's a feeling where you create something, you spend time curating it, you spend your intellectual faculties to make something happen, only to have someone come in and take a dump on it. You see, this was where the developers were at a certain point in time. There were a lot of negative sentiments toward the first Division game, and I cannot imagine being on that side of the equation, but yet this community stood by you guys. Sure, we were harsh, we played the game and we appreciated the game, we commented, we gave feedback, and sometimes, somewhat scathing. And, when the Division 2 launched, most of us in this community rooted for you guys. We were patient with you from 2016 to 2019. So I make the appeal, do not make the same mistakes that you made in the Division 1. You see, I've been reading a lot of comments from these Division 2 PTS videos, and I've read some really striking comments. Some people are saying things like Massive is making these changes to keep the players playing. Some players are even going as far as saying that Massive is being disingenuous and pandering to streamers to keep sales up and keep the game relevant. These are not my words. These are words that people who play the game are saying. Just read the comments for yourself. And I know that this is probably not the case, but what's going on is there are seeds of distrust that are being sown by these actions. And the last thing that any studio needs is being hit with any air of distrust around them, because most of the player base have dealt with this studio for 3 years. And we want the game to do well, because if the game does well, then we all do well. Even I myself as a content creator, I want this game to do well. I want the haters and I want the naysayers to eat crow. And I enjoy third-person shooters, and this is the one that has the quality and style of gameplay that I'm comfortable with. So this PTS thing that we're seeing and the changes, they appear in some instances to be somewhat drastic. And if the end goal is to shift the meta, I can say that sure, there might be a good reason to do so, but I think a measured and gradual way is the way to do it. Look at the nerfs to Berserk, which I never run. I'm just putting the case out there for such a change to people's builds. Look at the changes that have come into, Safeguard. And so far, the message the community is receiving from these changes is that the developers want the community to play the game a specific way, and no one likes being told what to do. So let me take a step back. And see if there's something here in the making. Even though there's a sentiment of disappointment, though, there's still players who are new and have been fortunate and have missed a lot of changes to the game. And their blessing has been the curse of those of us who invested time early into the game. There are also those who are in the community who have chosen to stick with the Division 2 because They just want to stick with the game, and they have no problem with the changes. And even though they have, some disagreements with the changes, we're just kind of used to it. In fact, I only went into the PTS for like 40 minutes, and all I did was just find a way to readjust my build and figure out what to work. If you look on my community page on the channel, I put a little notepad that I was doing some scratch work on just to make sure that I'm able to, fix my build if these patches or if these changes get rolled through. And, some other players have said that they're going to return in a few months or in a year because they see no reason to play the game, and they feel like the developers cannot seem to make up their minds about which direction they wish to go. And I believe that every gamer is in their right to choose what game they wish to play and when and how they play the game. So I respect the opinions of members in the community to do as they please. And the PvP aspect of the game, according to those who play PvP, was not in a good place. So I see where there was a need to make some changes. But I hope that Massive has not grown wary of its community and have jumped to conclusions thinking that most players intended for them to make these haphazard decisions. Because if you keep your ears to the ground, the community is giving some very interesting feedback. And originally, when I wrote the script for this video, I wanted to read community comments on this video. I wanted to just highlight them. But I didn't want it to appear that I was carefully selecting comments to fit my video or my argument. So I decided to place the ball in your court. If you think anything I've said in this video about the community sentiment sounds biased, then I encourage you to read through the comments section of any of your favorite Division 2 YouTubers' videos about the nerfs and see what the constructive feedback looks like. I'm not talking about toxic comments or maybe reactionary comments, but well-curated comments to see what players are saying. I'm a little surprised that it seems like the developers are not taking into account this feedback. Maybe it's too early to judge, but there's some things that they've actually put in place that are just like, wow, why would this be an action to take right now? Example is creating a gear score 515 and then placing it behind the dark zone. This is not a wise move because everyone knows that the raid is going to drop the highest gear score items, and most of the players in the game are content with the gear score 500 builds because we know how the numbers work, and we know that the RNG isn't just going to throw said 515 gear at you because you walked into the dark zone. So what was the point of actually announcing that? I just thought it was some ploy that was just there to encourage people to go into the dark zone. And if that's the only thing that the developers have, then at some point I'm thinking you almost really think very low about the community, because you could just do the alternative, which is create rich and rewarding PvP content and give the PvP community exactly what they want, which is, I think, my opinion, the feeling of power and the feeling that there's a skill gap. Because I watched the videos, I watched Marco Styles' video, and that video about PvP was actually addressing the fundamental mechanics, if I'm not mistaken. And those fundamental mechanics are actually absent from the game. And so Massive has to find a way, if they want to pull in the PvP community from the Division 1, who stuck with those mechanics for 3 years, they have to find a way to ensure that they build something that will appeal to that community, because that community is the community that wants to PvP. The PvE community, most of the PvE players don't have any interest in PvPing. In fact, if you read the comments, I've personally read over 200 of them. And once I put this script down, I'll be reading some more. And it seems like no one in the PvE side, not no one, but many people in the PvE side are saying they're just going to stick with their builds as they have them. They don't need to worry about going into the dark zone, because the developers have already said that the raids are going to drop better gear. So the developers can make the choice, they can say that they've listened to their community, but words are cheap. They require action. So to the developers, I say, show your community exactly how much you care about them by your actions. So in the next few days, we're going to see exactly where these decisions lie. And, maybe there's a better explanation, but I don't feel like the state of the game actually explained it very well. And, the truth is it would be very difficult to please everyone. But right now, I don't know if this decision is a sound one to make so early in the game. It may be a good decision to make, honestly, but it may just not be the right time. There's doing things at the wrong time. There are ways to do the right things at the wrong time. And if you push away a lot of your community because we've already paid for the game and it doesn't really matter, you think many of us are just going to come back and play raids when it's time, then that's just not the way it works. Your biggest demographics, and if I look at my YouTube demographics, is adults, 24 years all the way through 45 and 65-year-old, grown ups. You're not dealing with kids anymore. We see these things, and we are now more in a different level in our psyche where we think about these things in a very different way. So I would just encourage our developers, because I love you guys so much, be very cautious when you're doing these things. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.